Beez here on the WhatCulture Rock Show. I'm chatting to the one and only Mr. Jaz Coleman. A couple of dates into this tour with Tool. Big rooms. Does that, I'm in the middle of reading David Byrne's book, How Music Works, and he talks about the difference of playing music in various sized rooms and how you tailor specific things to it. Does it inform what you play on a tour like this, going into more cavernous arenas?
Yeah, it does. It does. We've kind of shaped the set to fit the kind of rooms, and of course, yeah, it's a big stage is a different technique. Yeah. It's really a very different approach, but we're loving it, and we've had such an awesome response from all the Tool fans because it's a new audience for us, yeah. Right? Most of them, I'd say most of them don't know us probably, yeah. And we're leaving the stage with the whole place behind us, and it's a wonderful thing. And of course, it does help when you got Maynard saying, "Download everything they've ever done if you don't know anything about them." He's, oh, what a sweetheart! Oh, and it's great touring with the guys. You know, I mean, we've known Tool for 25 years since they started. You know, and we were label mates on Zoo Records, and
oh, wow.
And we hung out with them right in the beginning. And one of the things I love about the band is. You know, I don't know whether people know this, but when they started, they bought their own rehearsal room with like 3 bedrooms and a bar, and I thought this is really good thinking ahead. You know, when you split up with the missus or get divorced, you've got somewhere to live. And I thought this is real great foresight. I like the way they managed their band.
Yeah, totally. So, you don't. One would imagine that you don't play as special guests to people very often in recent years.
No, we haven't.
When was the last time that you were invited guests on a tour?
Oh, Guns N' Roses asked us, and we played with them. And my God, I mean, and of course the weather was with us when we played with Guns N' Roses,
right?
And it shone like this for us, and it bucketed down for them. So we did really, really well on their tours, right? We got very.
There's something in that, Jaz.
Yeah, same with Marilyn Manson. He got it as
really?
well after us. Bands get it after us. The weather stays nice for us, and then luckily we're indoor venues at the moment, so
right.
it's all good. But yeah, we went out with Guns N' Roses, and it completely boosted our profile. I mean, again, you're playing to people who don't normally listen to Killing Joke, and then you see the spike in terms of, you know, the Facebook and everything else afterwards, and so you notice you are moving into a new audience, and this is good for us. I mean, by the time we get to the next album, God willing, I'm going to touch the wood now, you know, it's going to be massive. It's going to be huge because, you know, our reach is truly global now.
Yeah.
It only took 40 years. You know.
Just the 40.
The first 40 years are the worst. No, but you're seeing Killing Joke in every country on the world now. I mean, one of the biggest surprises to us is we went to one of these meetings where they show you how many hits you have in different countries and demographics. And where would you think our second biggest selling country is?
Well, I would have said here. I'd have said England.
It's not. It's India.
Right.
Unbelievable.
I worked as an online editor, and I was always blown away by that really brilliant taste, and especially taste for eclectic and harder edged music. India really stood out.
Yeah, and that was just mind blowing to discover this. And
have you been there yet?
No, but we're going to go there, and I mean that's promised after we only just done South America for the first time, and that was mind blowing. I mean, Mexico City was 10,000 people. I mean,
you're living out there as well, aren't you?
We had such a good time on tour. I never left.
Yeah. Was that what informed you living there?
Oh. I live in a really great house in South America now, and I'm connected with a South American record company. And they've got a place in Brazil and Costa Rica and Lima. So I'm living this kind of this nice life between these 3 different places, and a bit of Prague, sometimes a bit of New Zealand, sometimes. But I'm living out of a bag, like I like. You know, I'm a gypsy.
Yeah.
I live out of a bag, and
a pirate's life for you.
I tried to stay in one place to sit 5 months and 6 months, and I can't do it. And I get the wanderlust. I'm like Raven in this way, you know. The only home we really know is the tour bus.
Yeah.
and I'm quite happy with it that way.
I have to ask, going back to, because I've seen both Guns N' Roses and Tool out here, and that's two vastly different audiences. How did you find the reaction? Because I'm sure that the Guns N' Roses guys, it doesn't surprise me, especially Duff being.
Well, I did a record with him,
yeah.
and that helped. You know, it's a bit like the Metallica thing. You know, we thanks to the bands like Metallica and all these other people and Foo Fighters, we've moved into new audiences, and people who never knew Killing Joke before have discovered them. And you know, most of our audience are probably old enough to be, I won't say grandchildren, but certainly old enough to be children. You know, it's a bit like that now, where the demographic is younger people, and that's all thanks to really other bands covering our music. You know.
Do you feel an artistic kinship with someone like Tool, though, through them being such a big band that are into mysticism and numerology and all those sorts of things?
Yeah, sure. We're the same family. We're off the same block. The kind of things that they're drawn to. Yeah, sure. We've been there before. We're still there, and no, we're part of the same gang. I feel an incredible brotherhood with so many bands, I've got to say. And being in Killing Joke's wonderful, because it's better than having a knighthood. And I know I've got one.
Well, you bloody should have, Jaz, in my world.
But it is. It opens doors absolutely everywhere, and this touches me. Killing Joke is truly a gift to be a member of Killing Joke, and a massive privilege.
So after a couple of, so you've been working on this record, the orchestral record.
Yeah.
I remember hearing you on an interview in 2016, and you were just about to start work on it at that point in time. Like, was it a couple of years undertaking of?
It's been the biggest nightmare of my life. Basically, I had a dodgy manager who goes to me, well, I always wanted to orchestrate Killing Joke, but I never thought there was the market there, and I never thought there would be enough money to pay for the recording there. Two factors, and I was bloody right. And so I had this dodgy manager who said, we'll go through pledge. He goes, I'll peel you off 10 grand and put it in your pocket. Well, I didn't get any. I mean, minus. I got nothing for doing this. You know, the pledgers came up with about a third of the budget. You see, the whole thing was a mess from the beginning. Any decent management would have done an estimate of costs and see whether it was feasible. Of course, it wasn't feasible at all.
Right.
The only reason that particular manager got me to do it is because he hated me, and he wanted to set me up so I was in a state of debt, and it was a setup.
It's a business setup. It's a business of sharks,
It couldn't be done. This guy hated me. The same manager, he tried to stop me from having access to Killing Joke's Facebook as well.
Wow.
Right, yeah,
right.
So it's like that, right? And he got me to do, so it was a setup, right, from the beginning. And so the pledgers came up with a third of the money, so I was stuck there, and they go, well, we want our record, and I didn't know what to do. And then I was saved, because I got another commission, and this time it was from the Lucis Trust, to do a piece that uses the spiritual arm of the United Nations. So then I thought how beautiful Killing Joke's music was, and how wonderful it would be to take the words of the United Nations, translate them into Latin for full chorus, and do the whole thing as a mass, as one work, to bring everything together. And that's basically what I did. And so now we're in the funny situation that the official music for the spiritual arm of the United Nations is Killing Joke.
Love it, love it. What made you pick Latin?
Because I wanted it to feel like it came from a European provenance.
Okay.
And when you take things out of the English and put them into Latin, there's a mysticism that's added to the equation. And behind this, I wanted a very ancient European Union to look.
Right. Okay. What fascinates me about why I have to ask as well, St. Petersburg Philharmonic Orchestra, who you've worked with, I would imagine, in my head, I would imagine that there are no shortage of takers for people that would want that job of taking on music as bombastic and confrontational as Killing Jokes, and putting it through that orchestral filter. What made you pick the St. Petersburg Philharmonic?
Oh, well, the first record I ever bought was Russian Orchestral Masterpieces, and I was about 7 or 8 when I bought that. And then I fell in love with Russian music from that point. And then from the 80s onward, this is the other side of my life that no one's aware of, I studied for orchestra in Eastern Bloc countries. I studied in East Germany when it was in communism. Then I went to Minsk, and then I studied with a Hungarian. And after this, and he became my master. And this is all before the wall came down. So my musical education with orchestration was born of the communist world, because it was the only place I could go with my score. In a situation that wasn't a syllabus, if you like, from a university, and they seemed to accept it, and I would pay the money and go with the master, and the master would just go, this isn't going to work here and here, and blah 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 blah, and it went like this for 10 years basically. So what was born in the East ended up in the East. It's funny that, isn't it, the way it worked. And then, of course, I moved to Czech Republic for many years. But one of the things I did in Czech Republic and Eastern Europe is to study the folk music and the harmony of the regions, etc. And of course, all of this in the end pointed back to going back to Russia, and which is what I did, and which was tumultuous, because I went to Moscow first to work with the Moscow State Film Orchestra. And when I got there, I'd been ripped off and given another orchestra, and so I was off. Actually, there's footage of me picking up things and throwing them and screaming at this orchestra, saying that your mother, none of you should ever pick up an instrument again. You can't play. There's footage of me like attacking this orchestra, and so I was very depressed. So I left Moscow. And I was ready to be sued by my Western record company, who didn't have the record I wanted. Yeah. And I'd been ripped off, and they'd run off with all the money. So I didn't know what to do. So I wrote a letter to the Russian Ministry of Culture saying, this sucks.
It's very eloquent, Jaz. I love it.
And the next thing I know, I'm on a plane to St. Petersburg, and I go straight into a press conference. And I'm at this press conference, and it looks kind of weird, and there's these kind of official journalists there and cameras on me, and the first question is, Mr. Coleman, what do you think of Pussy Riot?
Right.
So I thought very carefully, sitting there in Russia, and I said to them, well, I think they should have had an extra 6 months in Siberia for making terrible music. And that was I don't know what the say, and everyone starts sniggering and laughing, and that was it. Right, next day I got the job. That was with the State Orchestra, and I did a great recording, and they let me have the orchestra for nothing.
Amazing.
Yeah, and then I went back to record Magnet in Boccaccio, different work. Yeah, and they upgraded me to Russia's greatest orchestra. Wow, it was amazing, and it was kind of a weird time to be there, because all the British diplomats were being thrown out because of all the case in England with the poisoning and the what have you, and so and it's difficult to find out what's going on anywhere there. But anyway, you know, I say well clear of all politics in every country. Yeah,
understandably so.
There's not a single politician I like on the planet anyway. Yeah. I can't find one that I like.
Yeah. Well, yeah, general rule of thumb. I've got to renew my visa in a bit. I'm saying nothing. I wanted to ask, when you were talking about your early dalliances and love with orchestral music coming from the Eastern Bloc, was that because it's got that kind of machinist type feel to it? Because I can see a correlation between...
Have you ever heard Night on the Bare Mountain?
No.
Yeah, it's like a witch's Sabbath. Or have you hear like Mussorgsky or Rimsky-Korsakov or Borodin? Prince Igor, like this, because it comes from folk music. It's born of like folk music of the land, and it just sounds so different to the Western model of Mozart and Beethoven. When you hear the Russian composers, and of course
it's only Rachmaninoff that's
I
ever
love
stood out
Rachmaninoff.
to
Yes,
me.
and so Russian music really has profoundly affected me. And the thing is, the Russian orchestral tradition is so different to the Western one, and the Russians have a very unusual way of getting from A to B with everything, and it was an incredible experience. You know, I like Russia.
Yeah.
You know,
I've never had the pleasure.
No, I have a good time when I'm in Russia. You know, if you don't drink, it's strange. The Russians feel insulted, even when a non-drinker says, "No, I really don't drink."
Right.
You know, that's difficult. But I like Russia, I like the relationship I've got with the musicians, and I've got a great recording team there. And you see, I record orchestras in a very different way to normal classical music. I get a much bigger sound, and I've got such a great team in Russia. I'd be loath to use any other team, really. You know, my situation is not unlike those businesses or corporations that work in Russia, and some of the things that they have to encounter too.
That implies that you rule with an iron fist, Jaz.
You shouldn't ask me that question.
Okay.
You know, I look at life like this. Music is no different to being a pilot or a surgeon. If someone's dead, and if you're in my band, you're dead.
Yeah. This is why I stopped being a musician really early, mate. So, with regards to, I read about there was invocation involved with your work as usual.
Yes.
Is anything, like, for want of a better term, a way of putting it, is Russia something of a mystic hotspot?
I believe it is. Certainly the Lucis Trust, they say that Russia is going to play a great role in the changes to come that will lead towards planetary consciousness, and I'm inclined to agree. You know, most people in Russia are very religious and very spiritual.
Right.
And considering they came out of the Soviet Union and the communism of the Soviet Union, and no one hates Marxism more than I do, we have to look on the positive side with Russia. You know, things are better than they were.
Yeah, well, that's yeah, very much so. Do you feel like this could have been done anywhere else?
No, it had to be done in Russia. It's sure it had to be done there.
And what's your relationship like with the States then, seeing as that's where we are?
I love this country, and you know, no country makes me happier touring in it than United States of America. I love everything from the cigar bars to clam chowder. And I have such a ball here when I'm here. You know, if we can forget institutions and geopolitics,
yeah,
you know, which is the same from United Kingdom, they're worse than anything America
I say that to everyone when people give me stick about moving here.
I know it's just a great place to be, and I love Americans in America, yeah, and I love the Constitution too. What
is it about the people? Because I'm inclined to agree.
Well, I find Americans incredibly friendly, and having a British accent helps, doesn't it?
It really does. It does. He's not kidding at all. Yeah, it really does.
Which is funny when you consider that in all Hollywood movies, the bad guy's always got a British accent.
Yeah, he's always British or Russian to bring this full circle. Yeah,
there you are. Yeah, the love affair between Russia and the United Kingdom, and that's another thing altogether. Yeah. Oh, the Russians, the love-hate thing with the British. They were made for each other, right?
Yeah.
You know, where would we be without the Russians? There'd be no James Bond.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Every hero needs a bad guy.
Yeah, well, you know, anyway, the bottom line of all this is there's no future in nuclear war, because everyone's dead.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And you like to think that everyone knows that.
Yeah. Well, you know,
you like to think so. I'm like, it's more faith.
And anyone who talks about
expectation.
winnable nuclear wars, they're completely insane.
I agree.
Because, you know, one bomb, drop a bomb on London and it reaches as far as Madrid. It'll blow Madrid out as well.
Wild.
And everywhere to Iceland,
yeah,
from London to Iceland, everything's dead.
Wild.
And that's anyone who talks about using these, they're certifiable. More than me.
The last thing, one of the last couple of things I want to touch on is when people reimagine their music, quite often they turn to technology and advances. What I love about this project and this idea and the execution of it is bringing in the most primal, earliest bombastic forms of music in orchestral movements. How did you feel the music was swept away when it came to adding these orchestral elements or making that the driving force of what you're doing?
I've always heard Killing Joke as an orchestral entity. Its music is vast and wide and panoramic.
Certainly.
And so I always knew that it would orchestrate beautifully. When you look at Killing Joke harmonically, when I look at the chord formations that make up Killing Joke and that Geordie and myself as well, there's
unconventional.
No other band comes close to the originality of Killing Joke in this way, and it's the most unique band. So rearrange yourself is a very strange thing.
Yeah.
Because you're doing a recomposition of your composition.
Yeah.
It's a very strange thing. But what I can say is there were 5 days of recording in Russia, and it was the peak experience of my life. And hearing the music come back to me, I mean, when Raven King, they played Raven King first, I cried.
Yeah.
I cried. And after we finish this interview, you and I, we're going to listen to Raven King again, because this is the day that Paul Raven left the planet on 11 years ago. And it's good to be mindful of this. And you see, to understand Killing Joke, we are ruled by our ancestral spirits, if you like.
Yeah.
So that means, in practice, before we do a concert, we do an invocation ritual. Before every concert we do, we form a circle and we put our heads together, and we call on the ancestral spirit of the place we're in and all our ancestors, and that means all our dads, because all our dads have passed on to the next world.
Right.
We've been there for all of us. We've been there for each other as our dads have passed on into the next world in our band, and our dads get together with one of our ex-managers and Raven and everybody else who cares about Killing Joke, and they're there just the other side, and they care very much about what we're doing with Killing Joke, and we call on them, and they are as living to us as you are to me now.
Yeah.
Right? They're just the other side. There is no death. My brother is one of America's top physicists, and he said consciousness survives death.
Yeah.
So they are there, and they are there, eternally there, and we call on them in the present tense, not in the past tense, because it upsets the spirits.
Yeah.
When you call them, so the dead live by love, and they guide us, and they brought us safely to this moment in time, and that is essentially the belief system in Killing Joke that guides us.
Yeah. Do you feel like when you play this evening and you do that invocation ritual, do you feel it will have some? I mean, I've been shaking.
When we don't do it,
yeah.
everything goes wrong.
Right.
So we're too scared not to do it.
So the double-edged sword that I wanted to ask is, with it being Paul's Day and it being Los Angeles, which has
he loves this town. Paul loves
yeah.
this town. Yeah, he'll be with us tonight. He'll be on stage with us.
Do you feel that when you do these invocations, town to town, city to city, country to country, Does it feel differently when you hit the stage, like because of that moment, because of taking in that
yes,
place?
yeah. It aligns us with each other, but it massively energizes us. Massively, it makes a massive difference to how we feel about what we're doing. To stop thinking of all the small things and then focus on the job in hand. Absolutely, it makes a massive difference.
I guess I also wanted to throw in, I think it's one of not only one of the things that I love the most about your band, but one of the things that I feel a real sense of pride being British, and Killing Joke and Napalm Death are the other band that I would put in this bracket. That is, so many bands, as like you're in your 5th decade now of creating music as Killing Joke. So many bands have a sound and a bound to it, and Killing Joke never feel far away from the cutting edge or ahead of the cutting edge. How much of that do you put down to living in the moment as well as your beliefs?
I think that we never allow ourselves to get comfortable.
Love it. Yeah.
Our fuel is conflict and friction and struggle, you know. And the thing is, but when we smell blood, when our band smells blood, whoa, you wouldn't want to go on after us.
Jaz, mate, I could chat to you all day. Thank you so much for your time today, man.
And you know, the funny thing is, beneath it all, the band is incredibly patriotic. What's happened to us on this tour is that one of our crew, our guitar tech, he wasn't allowed to come to the States. There's a visa problem, and for us, replacing it with a septic is not an option.
Who did you bring in? You're going to get me in all kinds of trouble. Right, cut.